So I'll tell you, the things they want to talk about, the things I want to talk about are kind of crazy. It's stupid stuff in Jeff's head for 200, Alex. What are we talking about, Jeff?
Dang.
Well, dang, that's right. Hey, guys, it's Geoff Landon with you. And what are we talking about, Jeff? Well, today we're going to get into a bunch of stuff. One of them is the weather in Wisconsin being reacted to a little funny? I think so. I don't know about you guys. I think it's a little weirder now. I don't know. Could be me. Could be anything. But, like, I've got kids in school. I don't know about you guys, but I've got kids in school, and it's getting a little ridiculous that they're, the weathermen turn it into, this is going to be the worst storm we've seen since such and such a time, and then we get nothing. 4 inches today, everybody, up by us. Now we're supposed to be more going through the afternoon now, and into tomorrow it'll total a foot, so they say, but we literally had maybe 4 inches that were cleared up by 10 o'clock this morning on the main roads. So I think one of the wild things, you guys, is this. Does soft mean safe? The softer we get about it, we stay home, nobody gets hurt, we have technology now, everything's fine, right? And my concern on that is, I think, a lot of people's concern, right? The biggest concern for me in that is that we are scared to do anything in difficult circumstances. I drove across town. It's not as icy as they made it out to be. And now I'm up here in central Wisconsin. Just stuff. It's interesting to say the least how some of this happens, how some of it works. But like we had a thing over in one of the school systems where they sent out a letter to everybody and says, we're going to wait till the morning time and we will, act accordingly based on that from the year on out. And ironically, I felt like because we're right next to that school system, all of a sudden they'd start taking the same perspective. But what we found was, as long as one major city decides it's going to shut down, then all the other small towns do too. And sure enough, last night we got the shutdown. Oh, we're shutting them down for 2 days because it's supposed to last 2 days. And I thought, well, wait a minute. If it's supposed to go over 2 days, doesn't that give time for plows to work and salt to go down? And so we're not going to be able to drive tomorrow either, huh? I don't know. But they're worried about missing so many school days this year that they've been deciding ahead of time to send kids home with computers and make them work like an hour. So if all they're doing is an hour worth of schoolwork all day long, what are we sending them to school for? What are we paying all this money out for teachers and everything if I only have to show my kid how to do stuff an hour a day? I'm still trying to figure that out. What was elementary school all these years if we're not teaching them important things right now? If all they're doing is playing and socially getting together, is that what this is about? We're making sure they're all together and socially getting strong with other people. It's a social experiment for the first 4 years of their schooling. And that's, namely true. So kids know how to interact as they become adults. Okay. I'm glad people are safe. Let me go to that Wisconsin weather. I'm glad people are safe. I'm glad people are, going to be okay. But you also strap down that kids who are of age now are stuck home with their parents who might have to work during the day. And I've seen a lot of strains so far in some cases where some parents can't be home and those kids are stuck at home. So I don't know. Seems strange to me. I made it to school in this stuff way harder than this. when it was truly a foot deep by morning, then we said, yeah, there's no school. Today you're going to sit and shovel. That's one thing I got. But just difficult for me to think that soft means safe in some cases. It's just gotten really soft. And I'm hearing that commented all the way across the board. For us up here, it's been the 5th or 6th time now that we've missed school. And the first few times, the only one was maybe an over ice day, which I can understand. But the other ones could have easily been a delay for 2 hours, still get the kids into school. Any of that stuff seemed weird to me. But it's just me. It is what it is, Wisconsin weather. This is Geoff Landon talking to you. Going to be here for a little while. Just got a lot of things that went on in the past week since I've been gone, and more to our episodes. You know me, I like to talk about lots of things and just kind of veer off, and sometimes you'll catch what I'm talking about. But I've got something that's kind of concerning that we'll touch on in the first 20 minutes here. Venues are being interesting. I've got a side note. High Country on March 31st has been canceled over at Kelly's Bleachers 2 down at Wind Lake for all you Milwaukee and Southeast Wisconsin guys. Sorry about that. Moving around the schedule, they're going to get a big national act coming into Kelly's there, and they needed to move some things around, and, we're kind friends. So I talked about it. Hopefully if you guys got something available, hey, High Country is available to come hang out with you on March 31st. Also, the world is getting interesting to me. It looks like we're going to get State Fair coming up for High Country as well, August 3rd. I can toss that out there now at the Miller Lite Sports Stage. So come out and see us out there. That's going to be awesome because it's Alabama that night. So country from both sides. You get us, you get Alabama, and you can go home and just be in awe of what you saw for a couple hours, right? So it's going to be pretty cool to be at State Fair this year. I know there's a whole bunch more that I could announce, but you guys can check us out there in Geoff Landon's High Country. So glhighcountry.com, and of course GL High Country on Facebook. Also, the pettythings.trib. I've got some cool stuff coming up with that. Check them out. Solu Winery is going to be a big one on July 20th. And our debut shooting out on June 9th. So come out and check that out up in Kaukauna at the Electric City Experience. It's going to be a pretty awesome show. 5 to 6. We're one of the earlier ones opening up just to kind of get the teeth wet and get the feet wet and get the teeth grinding on good stuff. So hopefully you guys get out to see that. Want to toss this out here. The venues, we had kind of a interesting thing happen, and naming names, I guess today, a buddy of ours went to play at a gig. I'm not sure where the mistake went wrong completely. The story is they were under the assumption that my buddy was playing for tips. And if I know for how many years he's been playing and how many years I've been playing, we're the type of guys that are playing just for tips, but that can be to help a bar out, help a friend out, and it's not far from our house or something like that, and we come in. But the way it sounds, they've been waiting for him to play there a while. They've been asking, and he came in and played. He even advertised it. I saw it on Facebook, the whole 9 yards. He advertised it out there. 22 people said, "Yeah, we're interested in it," and he didn't get paid. Somehow he didn't get paid that night. Now that's happened where, even in my case too, somebody says, "Oh, I was going to give you a check. It's not written out. It's not okay through the staff yet, but we've got it to print it up for you, and we'll send it to you by mail." And in that case, it was real simple for me. It was like, when the check comes, cool, thanks, appreciate it, making waves while you're standing there. I mean, I just ran into that where a venue booked 2 people. The agent said one thing. The venue had this guy booked and didn't show up, but they moved his date, namely because he was under the assumption through the agent they moved his date. So he showed up on the day I was booked, and one thing was what it was. I was a peaceful guy and said, no problem, you have the gig and go. And, you know, inside you're like, dadgummit, that's a gig I want, right? I want that gig. But at the same time, why make waves? I'm not going to make waves. But in this case, some serious miscommunication happened, and it turned into they were under the assumption he was playing for tips. And I don't know if that's a cop-out. But in this case, this venue, I'm going to give you a little story on it, too, because I just got somebody who came back and says, yeah, you know, that Facebook stuff, it's getting old, it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm on it now. And if you guys are watching, I appreciate it. And I'm on YouTube through this whole thing. And I may be 10 years behind this whole thing. But at the same time, Facebook still works for people that want to talk to each other and still communicate with each other. It's, you know, it's better than a pager. From my ear, it's better than a pager, right? But the, you know, it really does have tools that interact for, you know, local bands not to have to spend a bunch of money on this website, that website, and still get the rapport and the following they can hope to get that you're just not getting out of a local newspaper, or you're just not getting out of local media in general. We talked about this in earlier episodes, so you'll have to go down, check that out on some of those episodes down there on YouTube. And if you want, come to DAHL Media, right up there, as you can see it, DAHL Media Studios. You can see us on Facebook and just check out some of the episodes that I had earlier and is talking on some of those issues. But this one is a venue that hasn't posted since September on their page. And I got to think, to an extent, if the artist didn't notice that and was advertising on Facebook for their event and didn't, you know, we kind of know now we can even co-host with somebody in the communications department. And that usually triggers communications if things aren't quite dialed in between the two people. If the artist is like, yeah, I'm promoting this is great, you know, they're probably under the assumption they're getting paid, and the venue sees that. But if the venue hasn't posted since last year, September, and August was the second post, they've only posted 2 things 6 months ago, we have a problem. And you got to wonder where you're playing. So, I mean, I know it's Facebook, and that can be mediocre. Maybe this particular place, Nichols Pub, decided that, you know, Facebook's not working for us. It's not making us any more money, so we're not going to do a whole lot of it. That's totally understandable. If you're making your bills, you're good, right? But to have a guy in your bar and not at least give him something, or you're not even promoting your bar as a venue, but you have a guy come in and play, unless he just walked in and decided to put a bucket down, which I doubt you're that type of place. I'm assuming you were thinking you were paying him something for being there. But this is not for me to know, but it's not exactly a fair way of business if we're getting the truth from the side that I know. Y'all been kind of commenting on it too, and I noticed a comment on this particular setup, and I don't know, I think I can find it here. I'm going to scroll to it. I can't show it you much on there, and I don't really feel like making you read it. But there was a comment below that made something interesting to me on that. Yeah, actually, I'm going to go here. I'll find it real quick for you guys. And while we're doing that, don't forget check out DAHL Media on YouTube as well. All right. So, yeah, what we see here is there was a comment after a friend of ours pointed out, and they're making the rounds on how kind of screwy this situation is. And one of them said, you know, and this is something that leads to my next thing before we get to our first 20-minute break here. Another viewer on Facebook kind of pointed out, they said, used to be a time when people looked up to, admired, and even liked us guys in the band. Now, most people are indifferent or even a bit hostile to the musicians working at a venue. I've had many rude and disrespectful employees and bar managers and owners that have treated myself and my other bandmates like we were a nuisance or a hassle to be even in their establishments. Not all of them, mind you, but more than there should be. Even though I'm known as being a bit rambunctious, always treat the employees of any venue with respect and treat them like a professional. We're supposed to work together to make it a great gig for everyone, not just the band. He says, okay, rant over, now get off my lawn. That's great. Love that. I ran into this, guys. I ran into this twice. And this is what I'm going to point out, too. This is kind of the state of the music union moment here, okay? I ran into this. I played a hotel bar back in the day before casinos really started kicking up and being the place to play for overnight bands playing 2 nights in a row. There was still a few hotels out there, right? And we were playing Duffy's Pub in Fond du Lac. And I remember this waitress kind of walking in front of me. And I learned this lesson even prior to this moment, right? And I'll tell you that in a second too. But she was walking by, just crummy look on her face, didn't really want to be there. And, she's serving a few of the older folks, and I kind of took her off. This was literally the second date we were there. I saw her the first night, second night we were there. I saw her with that look on her face again. And I got off for the first break, and I said, hey, what's going on? You all right? And she was kind of like, yeah, it's just, it's country nights. They just don't do well for us. And I looked at her and said, what do you mean by that? She says, well, everybody drinks water. Nobody drinks enough here, so I don't make any money. And I looked at her and says, I'll tell you what, you're going to find a beer on every table in this place by the end of the night, and I will make sure you get your tips. Just smile for me. Just smile for me, because you helped me make this show better. And in doing that, that girl wanted to be on every weekend we played after that. And it made me feel better because now the staff was a part of what we were doing. So I totally believe in what Ricardo said there. It's hard to see that when somebody's just down on the band. It does not look good to the band. I had an owner do that years ago in Sheboygan, decide, well, this isn't country, and just sat there grumbling to everybody while we were playing for him. Then I thought, well, what's the point of hiring somebody who you don't think is country if you didn't pay attention to who you were hiring in the first place? I came with a product. People are here and sticking around, and all you can do is negatively affect that to hurt your own business. So that was, I've even had owners do that. And I never played there again. And it's not because they didn't want me. It's because they closed down a year later. It's true. Obviously, there was more going on. Most of the places that I've ever played that have closed down had problems in their own internal issues. And so I just never, you don't go back. You're not helping me, I'm not helping you, then we're not a good partnership. And you just don't go back. Done. And it may be that you get redeemed and you get to go back where this particular person is running another bar. Now, what I've run into 90% of those thoughts typically are that person is never getting back into the business successfully again. And if they are back in the business, they're just using more money. And they're putting themselves personally into a hock they'll never get out of. I probably won't see them. The other 10% that maybe have made it back, I've made it back to play for them. And we've had success because we got on the level and we nailed it. And so this goes back to running karaoke for me back in Sussex. I had a lovely bartender, wonderful woman. She, first few shows were a little slow, and I wanted to establish something. It was literally like my first month there, and I was a new company at the time. And this girl, it was kind of dead, and it was just her and her 2 friends, and she wanted to shut me down early and leave. And I was like, well, wait a minute. What if somebody walks in? And she's like, well, it's just not worth it. And I said, okay, I can see if, it's not paying the bills for you to be there. But I promise you, when this thing is busy as all get out, we're going to have our slow weeks too, but my plan is not to charge so much that we can't make it through a year. And on the slow nights, we deal with it. We hang out together. We get stuff done. We I'll entertain you. It doesn't matter. I'll sing you your favorite song, but please smile when somebody walks in the door. She actually literally got kind of cranky with one person who walked in late that night, like, I'm getting ready to close down, get out. And I was kind of like, wait a minute, we're open till at least 1 for my show. Why are you shutting me down? Because I'm, I know I'm making money, but I'm going to make you money. Trust me. And we got into agreement. The wild thing is the better attitude she had the next time, and I had more numbers there initially. There weren't a lot, but enough. And what we started developing was this consistency of tables that would stay in the beginning. And even if they died off, she was happy to be there. And what we noticed was they weren't dying off so fast. So, yeah, I mean, you could just see it in her face, how good it was for her once we were working together. And to me, if that's not established the first time you play there, that's okay. If they want to ask you back, when you go back, you establish it for yourself and you make communication. That's what we have the ability to do, everybody. We have the ability to talk. Now, folks, we'll be right back. I'm going to give you a station identification. This is our first 20 minutes. Going into our second. Thank you so much.
So I'll tell you, the things they want to talk about, the things I want to talk about are kind of crazy. It's stupid stuff in Jeff's head for 200, Alex. What are we talking about, Jeff?
Dang. Yes, that's right. And what are we talking about, Jeff? Sponsored by nobody. I'm sponsored by nobody, guys. Just you being out there, hanging out with me. If you like what you're hearing, go into the comments on here. There is a PayPal there if you like, if you feel like I'm doing something, making a difference in our local area of Wisconsin, or even out there in your life, making you feel better, peppy, getting you informed, all that kind of stuff. Go ahead and do that for me. I got no sponsors. I do like my Sub-Zero cup, though. It's pretty cool. So, you never want to give away what you're drinking, so you always, use the no-name cup. But it is a Sub-Zero cup. I do like these. I like Arctic as well. A very cool company. We just got for Christmas. We got one of them big coolers. Just kind of like having our Yeti, man. It's like a Reebok compared to a Nike, but So again, we're watching. What are we talking about, Jeff? Well, what are we talking about? I ran down my list so fast that I didn't have a whole lot going on there. And it's been quite a week for me. I know some of you might be out there wondering what had happened. I was a pastor for the past year, and I am not going to say I'm no longer. I'm still ordained, and just not with a specific little white church. And I love that church. I love what we worked on getting there. And there was a decision made unbeknownst to me that changed everything. And that kind of stopped everything in a heartbeat that I couldn't control. I will address, though, that there are some things being said that are out there, and I newly got confronted with almost a month and a half later yesterday. They know who they are. I don't need to say it out loud. But it's interesting to me what's being believed and what's being said. I stayed away because I did not want conflict. I did not want to cause problems. But somehow that conflict is growing from somebody else's words. Yes, folks, I was paid to be at a church. I'm not sure that really should be a surprise. But at the same time, what I was being paid for was not to be a pastor. What initially I was asked to do was become director of operations of the church to improve the operations of the church. And that's what I agreed to come on for travel and driving back and forth. And so I was managing a situation. I was also running the production. I was wearing many hats. And so I felt that I should be compensated for that. And we agreed on that from the day I agreed to be at the church. I was never not transparent about that. And some people on the other side of the coin are deciding that that was so non-Christian of me to do. And for that, I say, you have no idea. You have no idea. And to assume because somebody's telling you these things to make their day better, you might want to look closer. I'll leave it at that. I was taking the high road on a lot of it, and I really still want to. I mean, I had my regrets and my difficulties about one incident there, and it was a shame that something had happened at all. Looking back on what it is, I know where decisions were made beyond me that made it difficult for me to address the situation. I wish nothing but the best for everybody that was there. I do like to point out that certain people who are having an issue were also baptized by me. And the other point is that church might not have been there if I wasn't there. They may not have had baptisms. They may not have even been open then when people walked in the door to be saved. So take it what you will if you think I was less of a Christian for being at a church and being there at the time that you came back. And please look inward in the idea that a failure doesn't happen because of just one incident. And that being addressed, there's a sister church in Virginia that I still speak with and may be helping out in the future. But right now I've returned to focusing on family, taking care of my home, taking care of my music career and new adventures. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me on here. I'll always be indebted to my time last year that I got to spend with God, much less with people I felt were very good friends. And still wish it could be that. For some of those that don't feel that way anymore. That being said, we move on to other things that are going on these days. So we had our music thing, we had our weather thing. Our sports in Wisconsin has been interesting. The anticipation for Milwaukee baseball for me is wild. I'm still kind of gathering what the talent pool is in our brewer system. There's like really cool things, and this happens every year for me when they make changes, but they still potentially actually could be in the top 3 of the Central. And your hope is if they can rock the 2 other ones that may be up there, that they get a pennant somewhere, right? Central or National League, right? Well, now we're into the second year of all American League rules. So we'll see how that goes. If we get a DH now, right? We got a third baseman, and we point out that Eric Thames retired, the former Brewer. And obviously the Corbin Burns thing is pretty tough, right? Whatever was said or going on there, I'm not sure it needed to be quite that. I mean, we're kind of New York press-like with this thing with Corbin Burns, so I don't know. I'm hoping that kind of washes over when he gets the opening day start. And you know what cures everything, everybody? Winning. So hopefully that happens for Corbin Burns and the Brewers, and winning changes it all. We brought back Wade Miley as a lefty. That's kind of cool to me. So I think that's pretty doggone cool. I'm just pointing this out to you so you know what I'm talking about. We'll add that subject in there. Not that one. That one. So yeah, we're talking about Wisconsin sports, and I was on with the Brewers there for a second. So I'm kind of excited to see what goes on. I don't hate our pitching schedule. I don't see the talent being terribly worse than when they were successful for the past few years. So I mean, the one thing about Craig Counsell is how he doesn't die of brain function issues because he tries to keep things together when they look like they're completely falling apart. He's either the Hulk or, or David Banner, because he somehow doesn't blow up at most times and is the smartest genius you can think of to try and keep things going. And then there's other times when he'd just rather blow up and people be okay with it, I think. But he doesn't. He keeps his cool the whole time. There's no Mr. Hyde behind the Dr. Jekyll, right? So keep being a genius if you can, Craig. I feel you're a pretty strong genius. I can see things happen when you're getting things done, and I can see the look on your face when things weren't going the way you hoped. But, I don't know, guys. It's pretty nice to have a Brewers team that can still be in contention even when you don't know it. So there's my piece on the Brewers. The Packers, is it going to be love? Are we going to love our next season here? We haven't had a sample size big enough of love to me, of Jordan Love, and whether, and he looks great in preseason. He gives you 2 touchdowns and 200 yards, which if you look at the average in the league right now, that's all you need to do. If you don't throw an interception and you get those kind of stats, all you need is a running back getting over 100 yards and you might win the game. Ball control, right? We saw that now this past year with the NFL. Ball control is the biggest thing, and that means the running game is coming back. That does also lend to short passing game and why quarterbacks are going 7 for 11 and 129 yards like when I was a freshman in high school. What kills me is I was a freshman in high school. I broke the freshman passing record at 111 yards. I went 9 for 11 with 2 touchdowns, but we ran for 235 more and 3 touchdowns, and we won that game. To me, they're doing that in professional football now. And I just get that funny feeling. It's the reason why we can have the USFL and the XFL. It's crazy. We can have 3 leagues now when they were chomping at each other in the 80s with the USFL being sued and the whole 9 yards, until finally the USFL didn't have enough money to sue the NFL. Now, because the game has gone back to running and ball control and short throws, suddenly quarterbacks' careers are revived because they don't have to throw 40, 50, 60, 70 yards down the field. And they're not asked to do it 60 times so their arm wears out. Because, let's face it, if we had situations in football where a guy could come in and play one play like Taysom Hill all the time, you'd have relievers at quarterback. You'd have guys come in just to take up minutes, throw the ball short, then bring the big guy back in, get some rhythm, and throw the ball down the field. Because why? Because starting pitchers are not going to pitch 9 innings without wearing out. At least now, because we're not building quarterbacks the way we used to. We're now building quarterbacks weaker, and yet they're still making them run. It's been my look on quarterbacks in general. We're talking about sports. I was talking on Wisconsin sports, kind of lending towards the whole NFL right now. And the idea of, I can go down the list of what was Cam Newton and Michael Vick, now Justin Fields and Tua Tagovailoa and come on, really? Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott. You can go there, with Josh Allen, right? They're running. I think between Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts, doggone it, their running takes up most of the game. And in the Super Bowl, it proved that Jalen Hurts ran for how many first downs on 4th down? How many quarterback sneak? And then also running out of quarterback options and read options. And you're like, well, okay, it's not quite the wishbone from, the 80s or the Four Horsemen from the 40s. There's still more action to the game. And boy, I got to tell you, the Chiefs came to hit in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs came to hit in the Super Bowl. Those first 2 minutes, I didn't know if they'd be able to keep that up, but they kept hitting. And so defensively, they may have given up fourth downs. They may have given up things, but defensively, they never stopped coming at the ball enough to be tenacious enough to cause that game to go into a tie late in the game. And so, I mean, there was still a lot of action for a game that could look like a boring Air Force and Army game from the 80s. I mean, that's where we're at. And the problem we're having is you put all these running quarterbacks in the NFL now, and what's happening? Justin Fields out for how many games? And Hurts was hurt for how many games? Tua Tagovailoa's got 3 concussions in 1 year. Josh Allen got hurt a couple times. He made it back into the game because he's a bigger body. But, I mean, look, and Lamar Jackson out for half. Kyler Murray, right, who's typically a thrower. Then you've got, even Russell Wilson is burned out after being a running and passing type guy, although Russell, to me, should be more of a pocket passer. And Jalen, I think, can develop into one. I don't see Justin developing into that. I don't, and I'm saying first names only, you guys figured out if you're sports fans. But like Tua, he's probably going to be done. And it's not that he's running all the time. He's getting hit in the pocket and getting hurt. He's got a great arm. I mean, he and Jalen were similar guys with opposite sides of the arm, right? One's lefty, one's righty, but they also fought for the same job at Alabama. They also went up against each other in the idea of Alabama and Oklahoma when Jalen finally went to get his own starting job again. And it's an interesting dynamic that plays out all the way into the pros that we didn't see coming, I don't think. I mean, they were great talents, but I think we all felt like there's a Tim Tebow there somewhere. There's a guy who's just college bound, but not able to do it into the pros unless the pros develop this kind of game. So my biggest problem, and if you all know me, my biggest problem with that is we used to teach kids how to manage the game, and all we had to do was toss them a play, and they understood why and what they were looking for. And we literally did that back in high school. We just minimized how many times they had to recognize big situations. We, ran the ball, pummel them. When you get into a passing situation, this is what you're looking for. So we could, at least minimize how many downs they had to deal with that. But we could also open that game up like street ball and decide that we were going to pass. And we get, one good athlete that could be a tight end. And then you get some decent speed wide receivers. Man, okay, we can throw the ball too if you really want to. So we just had to get guys to catch. That was it. Teach them how to catch. Because they're going to run the ball. They're going to want to carry the ball. If they can do that, then all they got to do is learn how to catch it on a pass. And we're good. In high school, you can be loose a little bit. You don't have to run the perfect route. When you run a pretty good route, you can burn some guys. So at least when I was a kid, 80s, 90s, right? And now what we've done is dumb down the quarterback position in some cases, and then put the quarterback into even more dangerous situations, like, putting a quarterback into a one-off. We have MMA sports. This is the flip of sports. We had boxing. Pound him. Keep pounding him. Okay, this guy's not going down. Pound in the gut, head, right? You're doing all you can. And some of these guys are lasting 12, 15 rounds, but they're dying of CRT by the time they're 50 to 80 years old. But what we found was boxers just got mentally either slower or simplified in their approach to life, but they made their money, so they have a money manager or a great family that backs them up to keep them going, right? Then we saw Muhammad, who couldn't do that anymore, and it was just hard to watch. So what we started seeing was the MMA come out, and their justification was, hey, if a guy gets knocked out, he's done. He's not getting beat on. He's only going 3 rounds. He's not going 12. If he gets knocked out, he's good. He doesn't have to take the blow after blow after blow. He gets a one-off. And he's not getting scar tissue and all that stuff from all the medical issues. So they looked at MMA like, this is the new sport. This is the way to do it. Okay, so why did football go the other way? I'll answer that on the next side of this 20 minutes. That was our second half. Stick around with me, guys. You're watching DAHL Media.
So I'll tell you, the things they want to talk about, the things I want to talk about are kind of crazy. It's stupid stuff in Jeff's head for 200, Alex. What are we talking about, Jeff?
Dang. You want to know what we were talking about? We were talking about football. I'm a huge fan of football, so what the hey, let's talk about it some more. So where we were at, everybody, where we were at with that was the idea that in football right now, they're going the opposite of what MMA is to boxing. And so to me, pocket quarterbacks were MMA. Pocket quarterbacks were exciting, were fast in the sense of making decisions, getting the ball down the field, and they could score. And, you know, and then there's the other side of that where incomplete pass, they give the ball up to the other team. So we had run and gun in the 90s that was exciting. We had, who was it? Not Rich Rodriguez, but our boy Stoops came over from Oregon trying to do his flash and pass over at for that little while. They could score quick, and they found ways to win games, even though their time of possession was 15 minutes to the other team's 5. But they started realizing that without that ground game, you weren't going to get there. Now in Oregon, he had the ability to have a running back that was blazing awesome on top of it. So you could get that run game in there. You could get the lack of turnovers in there. And if you can complete the ball quickly, you have lack of turnovers. So lack of turnovers can make up if you get turnovers on the defensive side. But when your defense isn't getting turnovers and they're grinding the ball, you're scoring 3 times to their 6. So it was definitely one of those thoughts of how football is going to the running quarterback since Cam Newton. But I think Cam Newton has to be the number one example of how ridiculous it's going to be for a quarterback to change from a running quarterback to a pocket quarterback. You know, when you get, he was 6 something, they thought he was invincible. And they started running him and he'd get hit in ribs in the back. Then he started trying to claim it was illegal to hit the quarterback where he was. And, you know, the one thing about it was if they had just introduced spearing, which was the top of the head that we had in high school, which they still haven't done to this day, but now they're starting to just call it with the definition of the rule of an illegal hit of a defenseless player. But the idea is if you're going to lower your head and put yourself in problem, that's going to be worse. We saw this with Tim Lewis and Willie Gault in the 80s when the Bears played the Packers on a Monday night and Tim dropped his head, Willie dropped his head, they both hit their helmets on top, and Tim ended up on the ground for an hour, half hour, whatever. We didn't know if he was dead. We didn't know what was going on. And it was almost as dramatic, nowhere close in the end as DeMar. But it felt that way for the first 5 minutes with Tim Lewis. And the way they confronted Tim Lewis is how it felt, except that we knew DeMar had 2 cardiac arrests in less than 5 minutes, and that had to be treated longer and longer than Tim did, because Tim came to and things were okay. But the initial scare of, if you think about it, what Tim's hit could have done to his body, we didn't know what happened to DeMar's body, and that probably confused us the most and made us feel so scared for what happened to DeMar because it could have just been incidental through all of the action, right? But with Tim's, you knew that if it was his spine, if it was bones, if it was nerve endings that could stop you from breathing, and that CPR would not bring that back, it was scary with Tim too, right? So you're just like, man, if we just get rid of spearing with the helmet down like that, we'd eliminate some of the hits that Cam Newton took. Because he did take a few of them where there were helmets in the ribs. No doubt, I'll give him that. But at the same time, they were legal hits then. And you also put a quarterback that big, and you're asking normal sized people to hit a giant. They're going to throw everything they got at him. And when they finally do find a weak spot, they're going to nail it over and over again. This is the NFL. They will find it. They will find your weak spot, right? And so Cam complaining about what was happening to him almost seemed entitled. I think that's the right term I'm going to use here. Because he just felt like, well, I'm a quarterback and I'm a superstar. You're not supposed to hit me. Like he had the red jersey on in the middle of practice or something. And that's not how, if you're going to run the ball, I mean, he would complain when he was running away from a defender how he got hit. So he became a running back, and then he was complaining he got hit. And you're like, you're either a pocket quarterback or you're not, or you're going to get hurt because you're going to get hit. Or if you're a running quarterback, you either one better be elusive enough or know you're going to get hit and set your game up for being the diesel, being the big truck that can handle all that. But what we found was he couldn't. And that's the thing about running quarterbacks. We see it with Lamar Jackson. We saw it even with RG3, for God's sake, in his first year. We saw it with Donovan McNabb to an extent when he started running around and broke his leg. Now, Donovan was a pocket quarterback, so Donovan could stay in the game with a screwed up leg and still throw a touchdown or two. Same thing with Robert Griffith. He found a way to stay in the whole game while his leg was screwed up. But his career went completely down from there, right? And Donovan was still able to play a little bit longer, but without his mobility, he was kind of in trouble. They both were. Now, Lamar Jackson, you're at the end of your contract at Baltimore, and you think you're going to be the biggest dime quarterback coming. And I'm going to give you guys, as a football fan, I'm going to give you guys, he's either getting a huge one-year deal or he's going to have to be okay with signing for a little less. Because he's going to be a one year, and see if he gets hurt. Every time he's been hurt, and no owner's willing to spend that kind of money on somebody who can't be there 50% of the time. Unless you're Deion Sanders or Bo Jackson, nobody wants to spend that kind of money. And when a quarterback goes down, the control of the game changes. You know, if you got Taysom Hill, lovely. If you've got the bench of the San Francisco 49ers, you got lucky. Right? If you got the bench of the 49ers, holy crap, then maybe you got something there. But nobody anticipates that. And now that you're adding leagues like the USFL and the XFL, good luck. Because it's all going to be short throws and running backs. Short throws and running backs. The dynamic wide receivers like Michael Irvin and Steve Smith and Jerry Rice, where are they? We have wow, my head blew up. We have our number 10 in Arizona who's going to be looking for a place too, right? Hopkins. I mean, shoot, he was one of those stars. We've got a decent trio of wide receivers in Philly. We've got a mishmash of wide receivers that had bundle of talent, but still look like just a decent group at Kansas City with an amazing quarterback. Because let's face it, Marquez Valdez-Scantling had Aaron Rodgers to make him look good too. So when he screwed up, Aaron Rodgers could make up for it. They have it was Kelsey, right? They've got a guy who can catch the ball consistently and get open all the time. They've got a decent running back, and Pacheco really stepped up when Edwards-Helaire was getting hurt all the time. So once you establish Pacheco and McKinnon doing their thing and not getting hurt, each guy had their running style that would mess up the other team. There you go. They became Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara of a number of years ago with Drew Brees. Right? Drew would have great wide receiver, really good wide receiver, and a really good third wide receiver. And a great tight end in Jimmy Graham. Once Jimmy Graham was gone, it made it harder on him. And it relied on Kamara and Ingram more. But when he had Graham that he could throw to and a few named wide receivers, Kansas City's that epitome of the same thing that was. Still a throwing team. But what we're finding is most teams can't keep a pocket anymore. So your quarterback does have to have legs. But it's the quarterbacks who can read defenses who are going to win. And if every one of our quarterbacks in college football is going to be looking over at their coach in between plays to find out what they're supposed to do, they're in trouble. You're going to find 5 decent guys for 10 years. The rest are all going to be, let's hope for the best and see if they figure it out. And the NFL is going to have to teach these guys. So that's what we found with Jordan Love. Huge athletic talent, decent brain, but needed to learn how to read defenses, not look at his coach 5 seconds before snapping the ball to see what he's supposed to do because the coaches are watching the defense. And until we get back to being cerebral and understanding that, football will never be the same. And it probably won't because of the era now, of the fact of being safe. Like we talked about Wisconsin weather in our first 20 minutes. We're being safe and careful for everybody's health. But we're destroying what we live in every day by not being tougher. We want to destroy everything that's made us last as long as we are as a country, just so we can feel humane. We have to be better human beings. I think in general, we have to be better human beings by also understanding that being a better human being means being stronger too. And also helping your fellow neighbor get up and be stronger, not helping your fellow neighbor be lazy. And what we're finding, you see it in sports, you're going to see it in life too. You really will, because that's their heroes. If I'm a musician who is pampered and gets everything he wants, and some kid thinks that's my hero, I'm going to do that the rest of my life. Well, we get the next crappy rock star. We get the next guy who thinks it's that easy. And then when they get into the grinder of it, we've also made our fans do the same thing. Our fans don't give a crap if it's quality or not, just as long as they got their high, their excitement, their forgetful nature of what their day was like, as long as they can feel better. And so we'll just get a million crappy artists that people want to listen to because that's their escape. And as long as they can take more in, it won't matter how good it is as long as more keeps coming. That's the fix, right? You move to the better stuff, then there's just not enough anymore. Because we didn't develop it. We just wanted our quick high. And, there's how many metaphors in that whole thing I just said for the past 2 minutes. But it's true. It's us as a people, as human beings, can destroy everything that can be good because we're not actually paying attention to what we do in a whole. When you go to your day job and you think it's the crappiest day ever. That bleeds over to your kids. That bleeds over to your time at home and your relationships. So then their day's crappy. Or they look at it like you do by the time they get to that age, and now we've just magnified the problem. So step up. Want to smile? Want to take an adventure for a moment? Do something, right? But when you do it well. Do it strong. Work hard at it. That's, even if I'm grilling at home, I want to see how I can make that steak as good as if we went out to eat. I don't need to put 8 million pounds of salt on it to make it as good as we ate out to eat, because it doesn't need to sit in a freezer and preserve. So there are some advantages. But, you start finding yourself as a homemaker, as a businessman, whatever you're doing, you want to do it to me, I want to do it to a level like the reason why society wants to go buy it for billions and billions of dollars. So if I'm going to make a steak, I want to make it like the steakhouse who gets billions and billions of dollars to do it. Because it's good. For some reason, it's good. But realizing that you can actually make something healthier when it's made at home, because it doesn't have to sit and wait for a customer to buy it. So you get more fresh foods. That's what we've been focusing on as a society lately, right? Eat fresh foods, eat healthier, eat greens, eat this, I went to the store the other day and somebody came, one of the workers. No, that's what it was. I went in, I wanted raisins. Quick Trip, I love you. Thanks for helping me look for raisins. You didn't have any. And that's okay. Raisins. Who'd have thought of that? Like in the 80s, we had the California Raisin song and everybody was freaking out because raisins were the thing. Now it's avocados from Mexico, right? Or it's almonds, right? Almond milk, almonds, something that way, or avocados. That's what we're seeing on the commercials. Back in the day, it was peaches, raisins, so it was like the fruit of the decade, and so I just wanted raisins again. I got on this kick, I'm getting older. Bran is good for you, right? So, and then I knew growing up with Raisin Bran, it was the one, like what looked like healthy cereal that kids would eat if it wasn't like Choco this and whatever that, right? And so it's one of those things where I'm like, I want some raisins. I'm gonna try raisins. I keep hearing diabetic problems with grapes. You shouldn't do grapes that are a little too sweet, too much natural sugar in them. And I thought, well, whatever. I'll go with raisins. I didn't have any. I'm going, well, I bought the bigger box from the grocery store, but that's not on the road with me. And I guess I could just go out and buy the little 6-packs and take one with me once in a while, and I'll have my grapes. But then I thought, well, so why is this society as grapes left the building? Right? Why in this? There's a whole thought process there, and it's kind of in the same vein as what I was saying earlier with the state of the music union. It's the same idea. Where are we? Where are we as a society when I can't buy raisins at a store, right? I can't. And the guy turns to me at the Quick Trip and goes, yeah, that's why we're selling water with alkaline in it now. Like people are getting health conscious and your pH balance. And I totally get it with the raisins, man. And I was like, so I'm supposed to buy the alkaline water? Was that his pitch to me? Or are raisins good for me? This other one too, I'll have to research it more, but I had a wonderful, beautiful friend of mine tell me that the humans weren't meant to cook food. And that person may be right. Who knows? How did that ever come about? Maybe if you can, this is my buddy Derek Barry's idea. Bleep bloop it in the comments. He's a Western Wisconsiner. If you've got an idea on that, tell me. We're working at the end of our third 20 minutes, y'all. I'm going to go to a new episode here pretty soon, but thanks for listening to my ramblings. As a society, let's build up, baby. Let's build up immunities, strengths, thoughts, better people, not just by certain details, but by it all, right? Those certain details will come along as long as we make decisions. It'll be easier to see how to deal with the details if we make decisions. That's what we're talking about. Stupid stuff in Jeff's head. Until next episode, we love you guys, and please check out DAHL Media, and it's right there. DAHL Media, right there. Yes. Oh. Later, guys.
That's kind of it.